Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. In Module 11, we will talk about municipal social services, and in Lecture 51, we will introduce municipal social services. The different concepts that we will cover are on the different municipal social services, sustainable development goals, and the 17 and we will talk in detail about the 17 sustainable development goals. Then we will talk about role of ULBs in implementing this particular goals and also aligning of sustainable development goals with the duties and responsibilities as listed in the 12th schedule. So, when we talk about municipal social services, of course, the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which was or otherwise known as the Nagarpalika Act, this comes into the front. For example, after this act, ULBs were made the third tier of the government, and they were given the power to execute they were given several responsibilities and the power to execute these particular responsibilities. And ULBs can elect their own, has their own system of election, so that, and they can also take their own decisions. So these are their own democratic units of self-government, you can say. And all these responsibilities that comes along with this particular power are listed in the 12th schedule, and we have discussed this in detail earlier. For example, there are 18 responsibilities in particular. We have talked about urban planning, including town planning, roads and bridges construction, regulation of land use, slum improvement, prevention of cruelty to animals like cattle pounds, regulation of slaughterhouses. So these are a group of responsibilities. Similarly, there are responsibilities in regards to public health, sanitation, solid waste management and so on, such as water supply for domestic, industrial and commercial purposes, public health, sanitation, solid waste management, vital statistics including registration of births and deaths. So these are some of the duties also that has to be taken up by the municipalities. Now, in addition to that, there are another aspects like provision of urban forestry, protection of the environment, promotion of ecological aspects, or provision of urban amenities and facilities such as parks, gardens, playgrounds, then street lighting, parking lots, bus stops, burial grounds, cremation grounds. So all this we will discuss in the next modules. Whereas in this particular module, we are more focused on urban poverty alleviation, planning for economical and social development, promotion of cultural, educational and aesthetic aspects, and particularly we focus on educational part, and safeguarding interest of weaker section of society including handicapped and mentally retarded. So more or less this is the part which we will focus in this particular module, and these are the different responsibilities which have been given to the ULBs, and ULBs has to conduct different programs, it has to provide certain services, or it has to create infrastructure and facilities so that this sort of activities could be, or this sort of services could be provided. Now, parallelly, when we talk about the 12th schedule or the responsibilities of the urban local bodies, at the same point of time, at the global level, the sustainable development goals were formulated. This were formulated by at the United Nations General Assembly, and all the member countries have signed, are signatories to it, and that means that all countries such as India has to also adopt these particular goals or has to follow these particular goals, right? And this is in regards to creation of a global development framework, so that overall the people or the entire society evolves or develops at the world level. So this particular development agenda, you can say that this 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So this actually talks about a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people on the planet for now and into the future. So that's the goal of creating this 17 sustainable development goals, And this has been formally articulated and adopted in the UNGA resolution. So this was taken up in the 2033 agenda for sustainable development, and particularly this was a transition from the Millennium Development Goals, which was set in Agenda 21, and this has now in 2015 this actually was the timeline for this Millennium Development Goals ended, and then we moved. So this new Sustainable Development Goals were adopted, and this was adopted in the UN Sustainable Development Summit in 2015. Now, the overall 17 Sustainable Development Goals, as you can understand, we have got different targets that has to be reached, but in general, it talks about eradication of poverty and other deficiencies of the people, and of course, this cannot be overcome without improvement of health and education, and reduction of overall inequality in the society and between countries as well, and finally towards economic growth, but responsible economic growth considering climate change and preservation of oceans and forests. So this is the overall target or aim of the development framework, development for the entire world. Now, all these 17 goals, we will come to that later. These are interconnected environmental, social and economic aspects, all leading towards sustainable development. So that means even though there are 17 separate goals or specific targets, or targets you can say, then along with that, but some of these are interconnected, and like if you improve one, the other will automatically improve. So, or sometimes these are also there has to be certain trade-offs as well. So this is so they are interconnected, so they are related with each other, but at the same point of time, these are specific goals that also has to be considered. Now, each of these goals has got around 8 to 12 specific targets. Now, we have 17 goals, and each goal has got around 8 to 12 specific targets or certain things that has to be attained. And for each target, how do you measure that the target has been attained? For that, we have got indicators or some parameters or some variables, you can say. We have to measure them, or we have to monitor them and determine, are those parameters improving, or those variables, the value of those variables are improving or not. And each target has got 1 to 4 indicators which tell us if we are really attaining the target or not. And this is indicators are there to measure the overall progress towards the goals. Now, more or less, the overall motto is to leave no one behind, but as you can understand that we have got 17 goals, and to give you an example, we will talk about the goal number 4, which is Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is quality to provision of quality education. Now, the overall statement for this goal is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So, this is a very broad goal. That is, it has to be inclusive, equitable, quality education, and also promote lifelong learning opportunities, so that nobody is denied education at all. So, this is a broad statement, but it has to be again broken down into several targets. So, there are 10 targets and it is measured using 11 indicators. So, out of these 10 targets, there are 7 outcome oriented targets. That is what we have to attain, what circumstances we have to reach at the end of the period, or at the end of this particular agenda period, which is 2030 for some goals, but for some goals it could be even continuous. Now, what are the 7 outcome oriented targets? These are free primary and secondary education. It has to be provided to everybody. Equal access to quality pre-primary education. This is pre-primary. This was primary, secondary, and this is pre-primary. Affordable technical, vocational and higher education. So, it is affordable, it has to be technical, vocational and also higher education. Increased number of people with relevant skills for financial success, so that they can actually make money after studying. And elimination of all discrimination in education. So, that means giving opportunities to everybody. Universal literacy and numeracy, so people who are already aged, or so that everyone in society can have basic literacy and numeracy, that means basic math skills. and education for sustainable development and global citizenship. So these are the 7 outcome oriented targets, that is what we want to achieve, whereas there are 3 more additional targets which are also known as means for achievable targets. All the sustainable development goals that has been designed, each has got these 2 kinds of targets. One is what based on what would be the final outcome, and the other is intermediate, how to measure some intermediate improvements, that is for means of achieving targets. For in this case, for Sustainable Development 4, this means of achieving targets are build and upgrade inclusive and safe schools. So maybe at certain intervals you can measure this and say that okay, so many schools have been already done. Expand higher education scholarship for developing countries and increase the supply of qualified teachers in developing countries. So that means creating new posts for teaching, or filling up existing posts, or making sure the people who are going to teach are adequately skilled. So that is the goal of this particular. That is that is what this target is all about. Now, looking at the 17 targets in general, we can see that SDG 1 is no poverty. The target, it is, to say it talks about there should be no poverty, that is end poverty in all forms everywhere. SDG 2 is zero hunger, that is end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Good health and well-being, so which talks about ensuring healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. That means we have to think about the elderly, we have to think about the the neonatal the different stages of very young child to at different adolescence and at different stages of growth. Provision of quality education, gender equality. So that means we have to empower all our women and girls particularly. Clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth. And which talks about promoting sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. So that means if I cannot create jobs, obviously we will not create economic growth. So one is to achieve inclusive and sustainable economic growth, we have to make sure people are